Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. I'm Dr. Henry Segrishi, Director of Music. Happy Father's Day. We'd like to invite everyone who is able and willing to rise and join us in kicking off this lovely, exciting Jamaican folk song, Ale, Ale, Ale. You'll see the responses in your order of celebration. Here we go.
This is the day we have been given, and let us be glad. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church, a liberal religious community where love works. Please know that whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are from, wherever you are on life's journey, and whatever your gender identity, beliefs, or immigration status, you are welcome here. We appreciate your sharing the gift of your presence and connection by choosing to worship with us today.
A special welcome to those joining our service online, whether in the moment or catching us up with us later. We're glad to have you with us. If you are new to Cedar Lane, we have a small gift for you. Please raise your hand if you are comfortable doing so, and keep it raised for a moment so that our ushers can find you. Included with your gift is a beautiful brochure that introduces you to Cedar Lane. We invite you to complete the form at the back and place it in the plate during the offering.
Let us give our guests a warm Cedar Lane welcome. We're glad to have you with us. All are invited to stay after the service for coffee, tea, and conversation in the lounge, and our members and our friends will make sure to come and greet you, especially if you pick up a yellow mug, because at Cedar Lane, yellow means
Hello.
I hope you mean that, because I do want to see a bunch of you reaching out to our guests this morning. At this time, I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements page that you may have picked up on your way in which you can find many upcoming events and opportunities. And here are a few highlights. If you have a pastoral need or concern today, Helen Pekacek, our pastoral visitor on call, will be available by the Joys and Sorrows Candles table during and after the service. Thank you, Helen. A memorial service in celebration of the life of Sally Ann Roy, Cedar Lane member, will be held on Saturday, June 22nd at 4 p.m. All are welcome. Also, our multi-generational educational and enrichment program, Tapestry, is on its second Sunday today. Following the service and after coffee and conversation, you are all welcome to join us for the many opportunities that we have prepared and ready for you to partake in today. So I hope you'll join us for Tapestry. And you don't have to sign up. Drop-ins are actually encouraged. And today we share the plate with the Poor People's Campaign's Moral Congress and the work of Repairers of the Breach. Last Wednesday, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Unitarian, Universalist, and the stray Hindu faith leaders, really, yes, I noticed that I was the only Hindu around. Anyway, and so many others from around the nation descended on Washington, D.C. to the White House to deliver a prophetic statement and, in Reverend Barber's words, a moral impeachment against the current administration. At the White House, the Secret Service tried to shut us down. They tried to break our spirit by turning us away, but our moral fusion movement will not be silenced. And so the Poor People's Campaign is issuing a call to the whole nation and those who have a moral conscience to organize, to go and be a witness to all that is wrong today, that we need to be witnessing against. So, in preparation for that, the Poor People's Campaign is organizing a moral congress starting tomorrow and going through Wednesday in Washington, D.C. And part of the congress will involve a candidates forum, inviting many of the Democratic candidates to show up and be present to the many questions that the participants in the Congress will be asking them, as well as creating a moral budget, which in turn will be presented to the House Committee on Wednesday. For all this and more, we share the plate today to support the good work of the Poor People's Campaign. Thank you in advance for your generosity. And so now, in keeping with the spirit of the occasion and as an opportunity to greet our neighbors, I invite us to turn left, right, center, front, and back, and welcome especially our guests. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We're going to bring people back with Come Come Whoever You Are. But Kristen's going to sing the descant, so if... Yes. Yep.
Oh, you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Oh, you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Oh, you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Oh, you've broken our vows 1,000 times. Oh, you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, come, whoever you are. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. The ground shifts, sometimes slowly, sometimes like an earthquake. reminding us that the solidity we often love and seek is an illusion. The crumbling dust of the desert plains, the moist fertility of farmlands, the ending coastline of tidal shores, all are changing.
Committees dissolve or are created. Leaders retire or step away. Ministers come and go. Bylaws are amended. New experiences lead to new truths which foster evolution, the natural course of life always pushing us toward greater understandings of what it means to be human.
Everything about our existence points toward change, flexibility, and dynamic recreation. And it's hard because change involves loss.
Can we hold the losses well while not holding ourselves back?
The ground shifts, sometimes slowly, sometimes like an earthquake. Nothing is static.
As Mary Catherine O'Donnell, Zoe, and Tim Persons come forward to kindle the chalice, a symbol of our faith and gathered community, please rise in body and/or in spirit to share the responsive chalice lighting words printed in your order of celebration. We are not alone. We are this flame, ancient as the stars, new as the vulnerable spark. We are not alone. We are this chalice, rimmed by the spiral dance of searching. We are not alone. We are the light soaring, the shadow deepening, the dance between them. We are not alone. We are the heirs of the tribes and their fires, the healers and their circles. We are not alone. We are here. We are here for ourselves, we are here for each other, and we are not alone. Please remain as you are for our hymn number 128 in the gray hymnal, For All That Is Our Life.
Thank you.
For all that is our life,
We sing our thanks and praise, for all life is our gift.
we are called to use to build a common good and make our others glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for flames, pain and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all that is our gift, which we are called to use to build a common good and make our owners glad.
Each time we gather for worship, we gather not for our needs alone, but to bear witness to the joys, sorrows, and milestones that unfold in all of our lives, and to serve as companions to one another throughout these profound journeys of faith. We gather in this space made holy by our presence to meet the wonders and challenges life offers us all. When I hold up my arms, I invite you to say, "We hold you in our hearts." If you are living through the small and extraordinary milestones of life, we hold you in our hearts. If parenting is your spiritual practice, we hold you in our hearts. If you live with or care for someone with grief or chronic pain, we hold you in our hearts. If you are struggling with illnesses, seen or unseen, with mental illness or addictions, we hold you in our hearts. If you have suffered abuse or injustice, we hold you in our hearts. Within our Cedar Lane community, we celebrate with Joanne Jersey and her husband Steve as they share the joyful news of their daughter, Jordan Jersey, marrying Andrew Edmonds this weekend. Joanne and Steve also joyfully celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary on June 23rd. Our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to others whose lives are lost and impacted by violence and calamities in our world. We hold you in our hearts.
Would you join me now in the spirit of prayer, reflection, or meditation? Nameless one of many names, hear us and receive. It has come that time of year again when a day has been set aside to remember fathers, their gifts, their dreams, their presence, and their absence. For fathers here present and fathers to be, we come with praise and thanks, giving joy and understanding, and the blessing of love given and returned. For new fathers, may today be full of wonder and hope as they get used to their new role. From us who knew and loved fathers, who battled and were held by fathers, who were taught and loved by them, we lift up hymns of grateful remembrance. From us who were frightened of our fathers, listen to the anger and the hurt, the pent-up forgiveness, and lift up the spirits of all who are in need of healing. From us who had no fathers because they died too soon, or ran away, or were not known, or refused to know us, or did not know themselves we were their own. Hear our longing and frustration when we name the wounds of separation, when we chart the places and time we feel the absence. From us who wanted to be fathers and haven't been able to, who haven't been able to be the fathers we wanted to be for our kids, or who chose not to be. And from us who found others to parent us, of a variety of genders who are father figures, grandparents, step-parents, same-gender parents, and teachers and mentors, for all those who held us and taught us, hear us give thanks, hear us give thanks. May we be grateful for the nurturing we have received in our lives from sources both hidden and obvious. May we heal from the losses highlighted by this day. May we nurture each other and the generations to come. May the friendship and love we have in our lives today ease the pain and amplify the positive memories of our past. May this be a day of celebration, remembrance, reconciliation. In the silence, let us remember the names and lives of those people, parents, parental figures, whose presence or absence touched us as we grew and learned. And in the silence, may we rise to remember with love the loss of a loved one or the anniversary of the loss of a loved one. Let us enter the silence together.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Death is not the end, but the beginning of a metamorphosis. For matter is never destroyed, only transformed and rearranged, often more perfectly. Witness how in the moment of a caterpillar's death, the beauty of a butterfly is born, and released from the prison of the cocoon, it flies free.
name's the one before, and all of their frustrations come beating on your door. I know that I'm a prisoner to all my father held so dear. I know that I'm a hostage to all his hopes and fears. I just wish I could have told him in the living years. Crumpled bits of paper filled with imperfect thought, stilted conversations. I'm afraid that's all we've got. You said you just don't see. He says it's perfect sense. You just can't get agreement in the present tense. We all talk a different language, talking in defense. Say it loud, say it clear. You can listen as well as you hear. It's too late when we die to admit we don't see eye to eye. So we opened up a quarrel between the present and the past. We only sacrifice the future. It's the bitterness that lasts. So don't yield to the fortunes you sometimes see as fate. It may have a new perspective on a different day. And if you don't give up and don't give in, you may just be okay. Say it loud, say it clear. You can listen as well as you hear. It's too late when we die to admit we don't see eye to eye. I wasn't there that morning when my father passed away. I didn't get to tell him all the things I had to say. I think I caught his spirit later that same day. I'm sure I heard his echo in my baby's newborn tears. I just wish I could have told him in the living years. Say it loud, say it clear. You can listen as well as you hear. wish I could have told him in the living years.
Wow. Thank you so much. So much for that music. Music and art stir up things in us, emotions and reactions and memories. Marina Abramovic is a Serbian performance artist, writer, and filmmaker. And in 2010, she presented a piece at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City entitled, "The Artist is Present." During the run of the exhibition that was 7 hours a day for 3 months, Abramovic sat perfectly still and completely silent in the museum's atrium while patrons were invited to take a seat opposite her. This was for over 736 hours in total that she sat and gazed back silently at strangers. Abramovic sat in a large rectangle drawn with tape on the floor of the second floor atrium of this museum, and theater lights were positioned so it lit the whole space of her sitting in that chair and the empty chair opposite her. Visitors waited in line and were invited to sit individually across from the artist while she maintained eye contact with them. People began crowding the atrium within days of the show opening, some gathering before the exhibit opened each morning to rush for a more preferable place in line to sit with Abramovic. Most visitors sat with the artist for 5 minutes or less, and many people wept. There are videos on YouTube of patrons' reactions and experiences. There's a documentary about it through HBO. There's a book that captures a lot of these moments. Abramovic sat across from about 1,545 strangers. And they were asked not to touch or speak to the artist. But what began as a regular visit to the museum resulted in these deeply emotional experiences for many people. What is it about sitting across from a stranger who is willing to gently hold your gaze, to look back at you, that people were moved so deeply that they wept in front of this stranger and in front of all the patrons waiting? It was a public space, which would make me very hesitant to be emotive, but people couldn't help it. And it was almost like they were craving it as the more came and lined up to have this unique experience. When I was just a member at the Rockville congregation with only a distant dream of seminary, I served on the strategic planning committee, and we had a retreat that kicked off our committee's work, and the facilitator invited us to pair up with someone we knew a little less well. We paired up and awaited instructions. "Now," he said, "you're going to say 2 phrases to one another. The first phrase is, 'I am ready to be seen.' And the second phrase is, 'I see you.'" And we all looked blankly back at him. What did he mean? I remember thinking, I'm more than happy to see this other person. And I want them to be ready to be seen, but I don't know if I'm ready to be seen. And I don't even know if I know what that means. But we did it. We chuckled uncomfortably, grinned and squirmed in our seats. Some of us blushed, blinked too much. We found the courage to utter these simple words to one another in the quiet of that uncomfortable moment. We realized we could not do this sacred work for our community if we were not ready to be seen and ready to see one another and also this community. Reverend Abi shared a Sanskrit word with me a few weeks ago, darshan. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Yes. He says yes. I can graduate now. It means to see and be seen. It's reciprocal. You don't go to the temple to worship, you go for darshan. It defines community in a unique way that incorporates the eyes of the divine. He shared that Hindus don't just go for community, they go to see the divine and to be seen by the divine. To see with the eyes of the divine, those eyes that we often associate with the lens of unconditional love. So to prepare ourselves for sacred work, we were practicing darshan. And darshan reminds me also of the concept of Ubuntu, the South American philosophy spoken widely about by Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu. In his memoir, No Future Without Forgiveness, Desmond Tutu writes, Ubuntu is very difficult to render into a Western language. It speaks of the very essence of being human. You share what you have, it is to say, my humanity is inextricably bound up in yours. We belong in a bundle of life. At Nelson Mandela's memorial, you may remember President Barack Obama spoke about Ubuntu, saying, it's a word that captures Mandela's greatest gift, his recognition that we are all bound together in ways that are invisible to the eye, that there is a oneness to humanity, and that we achieve something. We achieve ourselves by sharing ourselves with others and caring for those around you, those around us. Ubuntu, in other words, means I am because of you, or I am what I am because of who we all are. Imagine we cannot become fully human without encountering humanity itself, without encountering the complexities of humanity. We need each other to become whole. As an adopted person, I have often felt very strongly about nature and nurture. There's a period in my adolescence where I rejected my origin story and asked explicitly not to learn more because I decided that it didn't matter. That was then, and this is now. I even played with the idea of exclusively celebrating my adoption day in February instead of my birthday in March. I was tired of people asking me about my real parents, and I wanted to respond that my real identity began at adoption, not conception. I was insulted and frustrated that people were confused about what made families real. As I grew older, I began to examine my anger toward and rejection of my origin story. As my heart began to open cautiously, I learned more details about the humanity of my birth parents, about who they were. This gradual opening resulted in a pivotal moment in my formation, in my metamorphosis. It was one night in 2012, I was sitting in my apartment alone. I can't remember the full circumstances, but I remember I was undergoing a difficult medical treatment for a condition I had contracted from birth and was treating for the second time. The first attempt 10 years prior hadn't worked, and I'd spent a lot of time being angry at my birth parents for being so irresponsible and leaving me with an inheritance of a disease and addiction. But now I was a successful 26-year-old living independently in an apartment in Washington, D.C., and I had a lot of time to think. I'd been thinking about my anger and whether or not it served me anymore. I'd been thinking about my judgment of my birth parents. They were human too. My birth mother is still living, although we've never made contact. That's a story for another day. My birth father died before I was 2. I remember that night wondering about the afterlife, wondering if there truly was a moment of clarity on that journey of dying where he felt sorry for the things he had done and the things he had not done. I wondered about his spirit, and I wondered about mine. That night, while I was thinking about their humanity and my identity, I got to thinking about all the things I didn't know about my birth father in particular. I knew he died before I turned 2, but I didn't know exactly when. So, I'm 26, I pick up my laptop, and I Googled my birth father's full name, adding quotation marks around the full name to narrow the search and make it more specific. I'd been trained in research. The first result was a link to findagrave.com, a website that catalogs grave sites and allows people to create virtual memorials. The full name matched. 1953 to 1987. The blue text of the link was loud against the white light of the web page, and I bravely clicked. The page loaded. Someone had posted a photograph of his gravestone. There was a motorcycle image etched on the top left corner of the granite. It read, "Born December 18th, 1953, died December 22nd, 1987. Our beloved son and brother, we love and miss you." And in the top right corner was a full-color photograph of my birth father. I gasped, partly because I realized I'd been holding my breath, and partly because I had never seen a photograph of either of my birth parents. I looked and looked, breathing again, yet breathless. He had long brown hair that seemed to stop around his shoulders, a full beard and traces of a mustache. His skin reminded me of mine. He was wearing a blue t-shirt with some print on it, but I couldn't make out what it said. His eyes, I couldn't tell. Were they bad eyes? Were they kind eyes? Were they my eyes? Could he see me? I closed my laptop and stared at the ceiling because when I closed my eyes, all I could see were his. I felt overwhelmed, but I didn't know if it was grief. The information I knew about him was not eulogy material. It was all ugly. His life had consisted of drugs, guns, abuse, neglect, and had ended in his own murder. But now I knew he was a beloved son and brother, and that was a story I hadn't heard. I thought again about my anger, and it suddenly felt like wasted energy. It wasn't helping me survive anymore. It was the protective cocoon I had built around my own metamorphosis to guard myself from harm while I wrestled with it. Perhaps he had built a similar shell around himself that prevented him from engaging with life on a deeper level. I would never know his full story, but that was true of many people I would eventually eulogize as a minister. I opened my laptop again and looked at the photograph on the smoky gray headstone. I looked at his eyes and his hair and his skin. I felt myself breathing, and I became aware of my own heartbeat. And I knew it was time to break through the self-made barrier, forgive, and let go. For matter is never destroyed, only transformed and rearranged, often more perfectly, writes the poet. I will never know if my birth father had regrets or even thought of me. What I do know is that some of his matter was rearranged in me more perfectly, and that we are both released from the prison of our own cocoons. I am what I am. I am who I am because of so many who have formed and transformed me. I am because of you. And I am because of we. For this ongoing metamorphosis, I am truly grateful. Blessed be. May it be so. Amen.
We see you. Just want to say something about the reflection that we just heard. And I say this in the art of homiletics, which is the craft. My mentor and my internship supervisor, Barbara Peskin, would call this process gathering wool. And she'd say to me, "Pundit, let's take a walk." And we'd walk along Lake Michigan. And then she would kind of bring disparate elements together, kind of lift them up and we'll discuss. And then she would then go home and sit with it. She would, as she called it, stew in it. And usually it was a crabby process, according to her partner, the Reverend Ann Tyndall. And she said, she'd be insufferable to be around. And then she would show up on Sunday with this brilliantly, beautifully crafted sermon that just would speak to the heart and the head and the soul. It would nurture you, it would challenge you, it would hold you. And there I would be with Anne, sitting in the congregation, and we would turn to each other at some point, and then we would go, we really have to figure out a way to kill her. Because it would be so beautiful. Anyway, that's not where I want to go. I want to go, well, you chose to go there. Where I want to go is the brilliant tapestry of an evocative reflection that touched us, moved us, held us, inspired us, and challenged us. Thank you. You have a gift that cannot be taught. You have the gift of presence. To see. And to be bold enough, vulnerable enough to be seen and to be in that place. Thank you for blessing us with that. And don't ever forget that. Now, lest you think that somehow I and you as the teaching congregation somehow had a huge role to play in making Christin the way she is within 10 months of her being here, I want to disabuse you of any of those grand illusions. No. You came with that. What we did was to create the space for you. And for that, we're grateful. And it is that we provide as a community. So, as the ushers come forward to give and receive of this offering, I invite us to keep that in mind, our calling to our larger faith in how we support ministry, especially the formative ministry of people like Christin Green, and also the larger work that we support through the Poor People's Campaign. And to that, we now give and receive an offering with gratitude.
Yesterday has waved goodbye. remember everything you taught me, every book I ever read. Can all the words in all the books help me to face what lies ahead? The trees are so much taller, and I feel so much smaller. The moon is twice as lonely, and the stars are half as bright.
Papa, how I love you. Papa, how I need you.
Papa, how I miss you, kissing me good night.
For the gifts that we are and the gifts that we share to make this a beloved community of spirit, may we be grateful.
About a year ago, as you know, we invited Christin to be our intern minister. Christin, your intern minister support team, each and every one of us has treasured getting to know you over this past year. Oddly enough, the words I'm about to say came to us independently of what Abi just said. You have demonstrated amply that you have it, and a gift for ministry that cannot be taught. In our beloved conversations together, you have shared, at times with startling clarity and insight, your journey. You have graced us with deep reflections and your abundant gifts of eloquence, music, and family, and for this we are deeply grateful. You have learned and grown while amongst us, but this is all the more remarkable because you seemed fully formed when you arrived. We know you will go forward and lead into a better world.
So Cedar Lane and Christin part ways, both having grown and changed over this year through our connection and commitment to one another. So we take this time in our service and our time together to say farewell to Christin and to celebrate our shared ministry with one another. Now, it is said that there are 5 elements to a good farewell. Thank you. I'm sorry. I forgive you. I love you. And goodbye. Through this ritual, we offer Christin a good farewell and release her from her covenant of ministry as our intern minister with the congregation. So please join us in reading responsively the litany that you may have picked up on your way in or that's on screen. And you will be sharing the words in italics. Christin, we thank you for living among us, for all the ways you journeyed with us, celebrated and grieved with us, and led us in spiritual growth and the long journey of justice and peacemaking. We thank you for your service, for your courage to invite us into hard questions, for your commitment to our spiritual lives, for your positive attitude even in difficult situations, and for continuing to lead even when faced with personal challenges and sorrows.
We are grateful for your many gifts of time, talent, and compassion.
A congregation is a covenanted community of human beings that make, break, and remake promises to one another. To be our best selves, we ask for forgiveness.
I too am a human being and have brought gifts and imperfections to our relationship. May you too accept my full humanity.
We part ways with respect for the beauty and uniqueness of every human soul.
We part ways with great affection for you and for your contributions to our mission and ministry. Thank you, Christin, for your presence among us and good memories and ministry. We do have gifts forthcoming, one of which will be from the congregation and presented to Christin at the end of this month of June. Please know, if you haven't read your e-blast of last week, that contributions are still open, and you can do them conveniently online. Also, I would like to, on behalf of the ministers, Reverend Abi and Reverend Katie, present this gift to you.
Thank you.
Of a care package, perhaps with a little bit of swag involved. So, and I'd also, while I'm up here, since I used to get paid by the word, acknowledge the presence, if I may, Christin, with your permission, of your two moms. Will you just raise your hands, ladies? And last but not least, this past year would not have been possible without the help, assistance, and loving care and attention provided by your intern minister support ministry team. The members are Ann Chernikoff, Eileen Louie, Carolyn Morrissey, and Sandy Shaw. Please stand.
And Tim Persons.
Oh, well.
Christin, we release you from your covenant of leadership with Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. And while our shared ministry has ended, our ministry to spiritual seekers of all ages will continue on, enriched by your leadership and your presence these past year, just as your call to religious service will enjoy a life beyond these walls. We release you to your new calling as a resident chaplain, and we give you our love, our gratitude, and our blessing to take with you.
I thank you for choosing me. I thank you for welcoming me into your lives and for all the ways you supported me as your intern. You have taught me, shaped me, encouraged me, forgiven me, guided me, and have been my companions in spiritual growth, ministerial formation, and justice making. I carry with me into my ministry all that you have helped me become. I leave you with my love, my gratitude, and my blessing. Thank you.
Thank you.
My closing words are to remind you of the process of metamorphosis. For that caterpillar in the cocoon, ready to become a butterfly, there's really just mush inside that cocoon. The creature becomes completely deconstructed on its way to becoming who it is meant to be, what it is meant to be. So may you all be delightful mush together. I wish that upon you, and then I wish that you will see each other in those moments and encourage each other on into the continued growth and spiritual formation, exploration of the eternal, and this wonderful mystery that is all of our lives. It has been such a blessing to be among you for these months. You will not be forgotten. You will always be in my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Reverend Green, rarely do we let a member of the clergy who's been with us get the last word. And so this is our parting gift to you.